Hi, I wanted to take a few minutes to walk you through some of the curricular documents that are in Schoology. I know that you want to deep dive into the Lead Forward pieces and also into TRS with Lindsay's videos, but I just wanted to show you when you are actually in your grade level in secondary, what it's going to look like when you open up your class. You're going to see your TRS components, which if you click will take you to the TEKS or text resource system. And if you're not logged in there, it will ask you to log in. That gives you everything from the IFD to the YAG to the clarification documents, all kinds of things that will help you as a teacher because they've worked very carefully and very thoroughly on breaking things down within our standards. So that's a great resource for you. Then right here we have our Lead Forward resources that Lindsay's going to tell you about. I just want to show you our emphasis on the snapshot. She's going to go into the reading one in particular. I would highly encourage you to watch this snapshot video, and I would listen to the first 30 seconds and then jump over to 335 to get to the ELAR part, because this breaks down for all of the strands. Really, what do you need to teach? What are they supposed to learn? How they're going to show, how students are going to show it, and then how is it going to be assessed? So it's a really great explanation of how that works. So Lindsay will go into the reading and the progression and continuum of skills, which is super important about ways to know. But this is also a good explanation of the other areas. And then she also goes into the field guide, and she's also included this Lead Forward IQ. And I'm going to let you actually click on it to see, for you to discover what that is when you're in here navigating and playing around. As we keep going into what's available to you, you'll see that there's a curriculum map, which are the units for the year. And the way this works is that English Language Arts and Reading has the first tab. So if you scroll down, you'll see starting here, we have our secondary units. So 7, whoops, I went back up. Anyway, so it has grades 7 through 12 down here. And the actual units are named, and they're put by the weeks of the year. So you can see all through the year what's happening. And then right here is a term that we're using called quarterly summative assessments. These are different from if you've been in a district that's had a curriculum-based assessment. These are not seen prior by the teacher. These are actually kind of a cold read of the mastery of the essential standards in the previous units. So that's why the curriculum work this summer that identified those essential standards is so important. So that's new. And you'll just see this as a guide as you're looking at your what comes when. These will be linked, like our elementary are linked to the actual TEKS resource system. Then as you keep going, this is an important piece. It is actually a great little pacing guide, a year at a glance pacing guide for you. Here is where you get to see a calendar view of all of your days of the year. And you get to see when grading periods begin and when they end and when staff development takes place. And you also get to see when STAR testing is taking place and holidays and so forth and so on. So it's a nice quick glance, but what you'll notice here is in this year of new learning and remote learning, and in the actual being an educator in the classroom where you have to make instructional decisions to be responsive, we are wanting you to really focus on mastery of our standards and those essential standards that have been identified. So in our TEKS resource system units, the last number of days here per unit is the number of suggested days to complete that unit. We put this band 10 to 15. That is not so you'll just rush through and finish. It's because if you're really focusing on the essential standards identified and the integration of the other standards as they flow and go, you're going to have to make some decisions about maybe staying longer in an area, maybe not staying as long if you've done a pre-assess and you see kids are really doing well. You may need to extend. So this gives you a little bit of freedom to really stay focused and work on mastery of those standards, but also take the time where you need to take time. Maybe you need to revisit routines. Maybe you really need to take more time to confer with kids. It allows you to have that flexibility. So when you see these numbers, know that the last number is the TRS number, that as far as suggested number of days to complete the entire unit, that is what's color-coded over here. Then the flex days are within that color coding. So let me show you here. So that first unit, you can see there's 15 days. And 10, 11, 12, 13 days that it takes you, that's okay. That just allows you to have that flexibility. But you do need to still be aware and keep the pacing of the other units and not rush through and like be finished with teaching, in December, right? So it is definitely still supposed to take within that unit time with a little wiggle room, like I said, to revisit, to go back to routines, to write for real purposes, to extend, or just to reteach. So that's what it's available for. Also notice underneath here, we have workshop resources. Those are some things for our junior high that we mentioned with units of study, some of the resources that go with that. And then underneath here, you will see where there's going to be a link to these unit previews. I'm going to show you within a unit now. When you open a unit for secondary, you're going to see a couple of things. You will see the actual link to the instructional focus document for that unit. Again, when you click on it, you will have to sign in to the TEKS resource system if you're not signed in. Then you'll see Unit 1 video preview, and this is it is important that you listen to this, but this is the order of how you're getting ready to teach. Is you start with the IFD, listen to the preview, and then with the preview, you can go to this slideshow, which is a unit at a glance. This will go over some of the information that's said in the trailer, but just in a way that you can see it written out as well. So this is a good prep piece before PLC, just on your own or even in a PLC before you actually delve into the unit documents. So these are available as support. And notice these are not a deep dive. We expect the IFD first, the trailer. This is the preview with the trailer. Then you actually get to go, and you'll notice there's a newcomer one as well for that. Then you actually get to go into your units. So 2 things. Before the units, there's this TEKS Resource System Pacing Tools User Guide. I'm going to suggest you look at that as well as we start the year. This explains the thinking behind the integration and the pacing of the units. So that is a piece I would definitely read over to make sure you understand, because the way that the units were made in TRS they were created around, bundled around a performance assessment. That's why we do the performance assessments. So this is an important piece to read. Then you actually jump in your unit. So this is great. Now you're ready, PLC, to come together for that kind of common breaking out the standards and the essential standards and what assessments will look like. So again, notice we have 15 days. That's the max. On the pacing guide, you have the wiggle room indicated. Go through your IFD, watch your preview, 3 to 5 minutes max. And then it starts with the performance assessment. Notice it is not just kind of what you're doing. It actually is what this learning has taken place. So you'll go through, it gives you the standards measured. It crosses out standards that are not going to be measured if there's just a partial specificity. And it goes into pacing. Here's one of the standards. And here's a guiding question. Here's a learning objective. Here's the evidence. So when you study this as a PLC, it's going to make the integration of your performance assessments throughout the unit make a lot more sense. So that's an example of performance assessment 1. Then you would look at performance assessment 2 and notice this is going to have more standards in it. But remember, we have your identified. So notice there's a lot of standards. You need to remember language arts, they're integrated. So much of them go together. So remember that. This is a reading standard, a reading assessment. And then some vocab, but you'll see, why do readers read? How does my reading and understand a text? And then suggested evidence for learning. The pace, what I'm saying over these days, this is how you could pace this out. So you are needing to make a unit a little more concise. Let's say remote learning continues and just getting routines down took longer, and so you're needing to shave a day or so. Looking at this with the understanding of what's going to go where, what could be condensed or removed because it's picked up in another place or could be pushed in at a different time. That's all part of that conversation. So that is a brief just kind of walkthrough of the curricular documents. We're super happy you're here in Richardson ISD, and I really cannot wait to meet you in person, hopefully in this semester. So welcome.